We are Glynnis, Kas and Marleen and made 4 videos about inclusive language. What is inclusive language and how do you discuss it with each other? We asked 8 inhabitants of the Academy for Theatre and Dance to discuss various sub-themes. In this video, Paka and Reisa discuss gender.
Is it rolling?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I'm Paka. My position in this building is actually to be a next student. Since 3 months I graduated from School for New Dance Development, SNDO, choreography school, and yeah, so I'm a visitor. I'm a visitor now.
Hello, my name is Reisa. I am a 3rd year student in the Theaterdocent voor Kort, so I'm almost graduating.
What do you think inclusive language means?
For me, inclusive language is to not gender it. So it's actually very simple. In English at least, in English it's based on pronouns and also nouns that you can gender. I guess it's just good to use they as a default instead of he or she. And to, when there is, for instance, host and hostess, then instead of going by default saying a host, then saying a host or a hostess, or actually even better, a hostess or a host. You know what I mean? Instead of putting the masculine as default, which I think is quite a disaster.
And for you, Reisa?
I used to think that the gender inclusive language was getting everything neutral. And I think this is already what you're saying a little bit too, I think I developed my thinking in this, that if we make everything neutral, that's not only in language but in other things as well, then because we live in this patriarchal society, we still think of masculine or male. So if you would say, if you would always use they, or you would always use, for example, firefighter, then we still think of a man, like we think of a man, right? Because we live in this world. So now I try to, if I address people, I try to just say, hi lovely people, I usually say to my students, because I think it's nice. And I correct myself if I say, hey guys, or something. I think that's also something that my students are aware, or the people or the actors that I work with, like, oh yeah, hey guys, oh, actually, hey people.
Yeah.
I say it, right? It still slips out. But I do try to actually gender it sometimes more than I used to, because I think then we can add the feminine again. And otherwise we automatically only think of man or masculine. So sometimes I just say, I want a firewoman instead of a firefighter, to make it actually more inclusive, I think. If you know what I mean.
I do, yeah. But then if we want to talk about the specifics, I don't like the ladies and gentlemen, and especially when it's and everything in between.
All right, yeah.
This expression, like, I think I prefer hey guys actually. Like, so there are ladies, there are gentlemen, and there are just a bunch of stuff in between the two main, like what? No, it's like, I just don't like it, because it just puts two main things and then a little belly of undefined. No, I really don't like that actually.
And so what do you think of ladies, gentlemen and other people? Would that?
No, because then it means the others are others. I think it's dated also. And I also, like, people who are not identifying as male or female are othered all the time, like ostracized all the time. So to have the vocabulary of using otherness, other people, it's just another alienating form. I mean, we're really talking about language now. It's really like specifics of words, but I think it's very important. And I always feel bad with the ladies and gentlemen and something other. I just really don't like it. I just think it should be erased.
Right.
The ladies and gentlemen thing.
Yeah.
What would you prefer when you address a group?
So if I address a group, I guess I just say hi everyone, because I think that's the most inclusive way to do it. Also, it's not that I'm going to say this is wrong, this is bad, this is good, this is what I want. I mean, it's awful also, but just the attempts of trying to reverse and include are already fantastic. I mean, if everybody would do that, no matter the clumsiness, like it doesn't matter actually.
Yeah, actually, I think what I try to do is also because sometimes I feel when we talk about language, a lot of people feel like, oh, I cannot say this anymore, right? And and
the police.
There's a lot of resistance of, and I have to use grammar that is not correct or whatever, which doesn't even make sense in English. Someone left their bag over there, then we have no problem saying it. But yeah, people have this feeling that they have to follow certain rules, and a lot of things you cannot say anymore, you cannot do anymore. And what I try to do is, and I think it would be a nice way of looking at it, is that you can play with it, right? So instead of just making everything neutral, what I now try to do is generally I just use gender neutral or inclusive languages. Hi everyone, hey people, hey lovely people. And then sometimes I just try to switch it up a little bit. I put the feminine before the masculine, for example, and I add a third category. Or I ask for a steward instead of a stewardess, because typically we think of a woman doing that, right?
Yes.
So stuff like that, and especially
Absolutely.
theater is like it can be an area where you can play with gender, and you do that in your language too. And I think if you do it in that way, you use like gender inclusive, gender neutral language most of the time, but then also you don't forget to add like feminine categories, because otherwise if we only use the gender neutral language, I'm not trying to make it like everyone, but a lot of people still will think only of the masculine because we still live in this world that is very masculine centered, right? Or the masculine is still valued above the feminine. So that's why, and even if I use only gender neutral language in very cisgendered spaces, I think people will not even understand what I'm saying. They will just hear people, but they will not. It will not change their outlook on the world.
Yeah.
So then that's why. But I'm going to think about what you said, because I think it's a good point. That's sometimes why in cisgendered space I try to use ladies. I just do it one time, like ladies, gentlemen, and people, and I see people like, oh wait, there's another. You see people. You see the cis guy going like, huh? Never thought of this before. There's still these people that never thought of anything else than the gender binary. So if you do add that third category in those spaces, I think it can actually open up people's minds to this other option.
Yeah, it really depends on the context. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Like in trans spaces, there is no point of saying this and this and this. Like it's like neutral. It's just easier. It's just simpler, and that's how it should be for everyone, I guess.
Yeah. So when I get a class of people, what I notice is that at first, like we still work a lot in theater. We work, of course, with playing a character, right? So you already play someone else. So this is a new concept for people. But at first, people usually just think in a very gender binary, heteronormative, racist way. That's just how most people are, even though they don't realize it, right? So, for example, they play a scene about a family, and they make like, a guy, a woman, a child, and then, for example, the child also has to play like the adoptive child because it happens to be a black person, for example. So you see how it's like both heteronormative, it's racist, it's gendered, right? So what I try to do is from the very first start, I try to challenge these stereotypes, and I say, well, actually, I think you're going to play the two moms, for example, or sometimes I start out a little bit. You're going to play the dad, you're going to play the mom, you're going to play the child. We're not going to talk about adoption. It's not relevant for this scene. I don't try to make it like a whole activist thing, but I just try to switch it up and then sort of, make people aware that you don't have to only tell the same stories over again, and that sometimes certain things that people just automatically do, they're not necessary, they're not helping the story. So that's one way. I also always say that people can play any character in my class. So I usually see that a lot of women are very comfortable with playing, not at first, but they become quickly comfortable with playing, for example, male characters. And then if the classroom starts to become a more safe place, then sometimes you see men or boys also playing women roles. And I just have to be very aware of it all the time, and also have to challenge people's own stereotypes and perceptions.
Can there be a sign in which we friendly ask for people to let them know their pronouns.
Yeah, actually, I had also a point about this. So I just got all fired up with this story. But because I felt like when I read your questions in the email, I actually started to think about this question, the gap, because it's not only about generation gap, it's about position gap. And so my experience here is like excellent with people working in the building. And I think that it's because they are warm. So it's not so much to me a question. It's different for teachers, for department leaders. It's different. It's like high responsibility in how you treat your students, right? But for people working in the building, it's like if you sense the care or if you sense the well-intendedness, just having a half smile or things like this, it's already such a massive part of the job done, you know?
I feel like even if you ask the pronoun, it really depends on what the consequence is of this, right? Because
banned.
No,
sorry,
only this and that.
I won't interrupt anymore.
There was a non-binary person in my class who used they, them pronouns. Almost everyone used the wrong pronouns the whole time. What is the point of asking for pronouns if you're not doing the work of actually using the pronouns that someone wants you to use, right? I don't know, then why even ask, why even bother? Because it even becomes more of a hazard, I think, and it becomes more painful.
That in an insurance company, it's not yet clear what pronouns is. It's sad, but you know, like, it takes time. But in a school, I mean, this is just, I have an issue with this topic when it comes to responsibility. The responsibility of the school is to know who is coming and to know how to handle them. This is not okay. This is like if it's not part of the requirements of teachers to read something about white supremacy and about gender non-binariness, it's for me it's a default. It's not even on the teachers to me. It's on the leaders of departments. The classmates probably are the ones who make the most effort. Whereas actually the responsibility comes for everybody that is supposed to support us. So yeah, they just need to be a guide. And it's not only about gender, it's not only about, it's about neurodivergence, it's about like blackness, it's about being otherly abled, like it's like, I don't know, it's a school. Like we get to learn so many things here. And I was 32 when I entered the school. Imagine when you come here when you are 17. You are molded by this environment, by the teachers, by whoever surrounds you. And if you start at like in your early 20s being acknowledged as the gender you are by other people who represent power or authority, then it just sets you on a nice lane for the rest, for later. It sets an example, and then it's people who will just share that knowledge and that awareness. If you come here in the Netherlands and then teachers don't know what non-binary is and they don't respect a pronoun, like it is, to me it's crazy.
I agree with everything you said, basically.
Yeah.
10 points. Yeah, and also it doesn't need to stop at language, right? Because language is power, of course, and it's one part of it. But I think everyone in this school needs to look at the power they actually have and how they use that power. So I'm very aware that if I'm teaching a class, I am in a position of power. And the things I do, what I say, but also how I act, the kind of scenes I choose or the kind of text I bring with me, that's all power.
Responsibility for me is key. Responsibility and warmth. Yeah, it's all on us to use whatever power we have to make it a little bit better.
Yeah.